Good day, everybody. Glad to be with you. You noticed on your seat that you have a little handout. When the Google team reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to do this presentation today, I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And their answer was, well, micro moments. And as you recognize that what they're discussing is a native part of how you live now, you're in store, you're researching, you get a flat tire, how do I fix this tire? You're on YouTube, right? This is the way that we all live now. I also started to reflect on the way that it's impacted the way that we all advertise and market. 20 years ago, you guys remember you'd have like a Super Bowl commercial, and that was your big marquee reach out to your consuming audience. Well, they're going to the bathroom and getting snacks during the Super Bowl commercials. And so you quickly realize that we've kind of deconstructed those massive macro moments into infinite micro moments that span our days. As I study brand strategy globally, this is evident to me, whether it's mobile-enabled, tablet-enabled, social-enabled. We all recognize that this has happened. I wanted to give you a really interesting thing to think about in the midst of these micro moments, and that is the humans administering these micro moments. You'll learn today about the data and the science that will help you take the right communication action online. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the humans that you and I are trying to engage in this incredible era we're experiencing. So to make it kind of fun and put you on your seat, edge of your seat a little bit, I decided to do this in a rebellious sort of way. This is a photograph of my office, my space at Innovation Protocol. I have a team of 25, but this is just my room. Here's my little dog, Olive. Oops. My dog, Olive. And I just want to show you when Google called and said, you know, hey, we want you to talk about this, I went through the process that I go through when I create a speech for my graduate students, which is, listen, I got to honor their time. I need to put this together in a sequence that makes sense to them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do for you today. I basically storyboarded like I was writing a movie, every single topic that I wanted to cover, and I'm going to jump into it right now. Okay? So first thing that it came to was, we already know a lot. You already know a lot. You are not sitting here in a vacuum. You know so much, and you're relating your time to Google, so you have even more information than most organizations do. But I wanted to start our discussion today with that specifically, what we already know. And not only what we already know, but how we know it. So I took this storyboard, this sequence of information, and I decided that I was going to draw you a map of my speech, so you never have to call me again. You never have to wonder what it was that I said. It's all right here. So here I am drawing it. My first draft, second draft, third draft. Oh, by the way, this is right. I live in Los Angeles, which is next to Hollywood. I don't know if you guys know Hollywood's not a real place. I'm so serious. It is a circle drawn on the map by the entertainment industry. But anyway, you learn by being adjacent to the entertainment industry that all the movies that you and I love, every religious story that's ever impacted us, it's built in what's called a story arc, where you start with something that everybody can get their head around, you ramp them up to some big idea, you give them the painful truths that bring them down to a contemplation moment, and then you shoot them towards the goal. This is, I mean, pick Star Wars, whatever you want, absolutely built on this story arc form. So today, that's what I'm going to try and do for you. I'm going to, version 5, here, I think we're at version 6. There we go, version 6. All right, so here's your little doodle. It's yours to have. And then, by the way, on the back of this, everything I'm going to say and not going to say. Quick summary of all the points that I'm going to try and make in my little time slot. Sound good? All right, so here we go. Let's start in the bottom left, why I think that this is the greatest age of social change yet. Try that on. The greatest age of social change yet. Anyone who's ever studied European history knows about the Gutenberg press, how learning was confined to that which could be handwritten and handed out. And then we figured out how to systemize the printing, and then Martin Luther was like, well, let's print the Bible. And learning spanned Europe because of this new technology. All right, well, let's try on the internet. Let's just try on what that has done to impact the way that people think in this era. So as I go through this, you'll notice on the back there's some important points that I want you to take into consideration. And by the way, I tried to do it in the colloquial vocabulary of the youth. For example, I know you understand that mobile's a priority. But if you ask the youth, they'd be like, obvi-mobile, like obviously mobile. So that's your hashtag, obvi-mobile, okay? So in this greatest age of social change yet, you recognize that mobile is the way that you, in private, have access to the content that is intriguing to you. You don't have to share it. You don't have to watch the same channel as the person sitting next to you. You've got your rectangular portal to the world, right? Other things that are happening right now, 3D printing. We're printing organs, like human organs, and multi-tenant buildings. We're 3D printing buildings and living in them. All right, this is going to obviously change the nature of what's going on in your industry, but my point is that this is, in fact, the greatest age of social change yet. So we can either be mired in that, or we can be excited that we're alive to facilitate this transition. All right, so let's get into the details. Back to my office again. Now, I not only story arced this for you, but I decided that you don't need any more Keynote or PowerPoint slides, so everything else I'm going to show you is a doodle. Nobody's ever paid me to create art. I've worked in the words side of branding for 20 years, naming products, building mission, vision, positioning strategies. I have artists. We have designers. So I'm going to tell you right now, they're all going to suck. They're not anything fantastic, but I think that they're going to get the idea across. All right, so let's start with how we live. You'll notice in your story arc, first tier is, how we exist. How we exist. So when I talk about how we exist, it used to be that the entirety of your identity was that which someone can experience face to face. You had your church identity, you had your work identity, you had your at home with the family identity. You all know that that is silly, that is not how we live anymore. Most of your waking hours, you are connected to the internet. And not only are you connected to your internet, but that is your primary way of communicating with your coworkers over email, telling your family how your child is doing through social media, right? So here we have, more to the doodles, all the things that make up our life, our happiness, our ideas, our career, our nation, our faith, our homes. We take all of that and we kind of push them through our insecurity filters, you like that, rather than security filters? Insecurity filters, and create an identity for ourselves in this Internet of Things life we are living. Every day, more of the things that we have, and by the way, fashion is right around the corner to be an Internet of Things device. All of that connectivity is forcing us to render an identity that we use to engage. For example, if this speech is relevant to you, you're going to send me an email. You're going to find me online, right? You think I've left it to chance? Do you think that I hope that there's the right combination of things that tell you what I do? No. I understand the world that we're living in. This is how we exist now. And in fact, your digital identity is going to go on long past your organic body. Okay? Right? When people try to remember your existence, all right, perfect. So that's how we exist now, but what's so intriguing to me as a professor is that we learn differently now. When you and I were young, we're like, we're going to go to college, get that 4-year thing. Okay, that is not how people learn today. You're permanently learning. I mean, you're going to seminars at work, you're at church and there's some speaker, you're reading something online. All right, well, if you're trying to engage an audience that doesn't learn in the traditional sense, and maybe there's a grand opportunity to engage them because they are permanent learners, right? Look at this woman. It's not her graduate degree that defines her education. It's the lifestyle of a living learner that defines the way that she consumes. Is anybody in this room done learning? No, you get it, right? Okay, perfect. So the psychology of the audiences that you're trying to engage have not stopped learning. They're in this perpetual state of learning. And not only are they learning, oh my gosh, we know stuff about our individualized self. People have been dreaming about knowing these things for centuries. I call this know thyself data. Not just know thyself, but know thyself data. You can do gene mapping with 23andMe. You can do waste analysis so that we can understand the bacteria in your gut. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a symbiosis going. We're not just one organism. We're actually a billion organisms made up of all the bacteria that help us process. All right, think about this. The consumer, your audience, is daily. They've got smart devices telling them about their biofeedback so that they can be better and smarter at managing their physical being. Oh my gosh, what a fascinating time for us to be alive. Your audience is more self-aware than anyone you've ever known before. What an amazing way to engage, right? Knowing their sizes, knowing what type of work environment they work in so that you can serve them effectively. This consumer, you and I, not only knows more about ourselves than we could ever have imagined in the past, but we are, as I like to say, carefree codependent. One of my coworkers, so fun, we have a policy at Innovation Protocol. If your family's in town, they have to come to the office, otherwise you get fired. So everybody brings their family to the office. I got moms and dads and sisters and brothers kicking it at work. They're doing their own thing, but they're around their family. And one of our coworkers' father was in town, and he was driving back and forth to work with my coworker. And he was like, honey, why do you keep putting your address into the navigation? Don't you know where you live? Like, don't you know the route? And she's like, yeah, Dad, but I'm getting way more information than the destination I'm trying to go to. I know if there's going to be traffic. I know if there's an ulterior route. I know if there's construction. I know if I can stop at the grocery store on the way home to make sure that I meet my daily objectives. And you're like, all right, I mean, what else would you do? Would you go into traffic blind? Have you gotten onto the freeway and be like, let's see how this goes? All right, so you recognize that we're in this carefree but codependent state where if I asked you 20 years ago, and I'm sorry to say this, your house is on fire. 20 years ago, your house is on fire. Run in and get something. What are you going to get? Say it loud. Photo album. Are you going to do that now? No, you're like, it's in the cloud. It's in the cloud. I don't need to go and burn. You know what? Get me the insurance check, right? Okay? Recognize that we have this incredible head in the cloud like psychology, which frees us to be. You do not know your significant other's phone number. Get it? Get that carefree codependence that we now have been given? On top of this life in the clouds, the generation split that was defined by the year that you were born, long gone. Anybody ever met a millennial that self-identifies as a millennial? No, they're going to curse right in your face. Okay? Not only do they not identify as a millennial, but the fastest growing users of social are baby boomers. They're the ones moving most quickly, the most robust content. So to suggest that you're trying to target someone that was born in a specific window is constraining. It's a legacy philosophy. What matters is who's engaged and who's not engaged. There's the people that are not on the internet. I know. There's the people who don't shop online. I know, I've heard of them. I understand those people. That's not what I'm talking about. Your target demographic is not defined by the year they were born. It's defined by the lifestyle they live. Their engagement practices, their consumption behaviors. That's what defines their being. So back to the little story arc. So we've recognized that we are in the midst of one of the greatest ages of social change yet. We understand how we exist and how we learn and what we know and what we don't know with our head in the cloud and who we are. We're not defined by years, we're defined by lifestyle. And I think that this, therefore, becomes a new type of consumer. Not the consumer that you and I were, where we went into the store and the store was the warehouse. It was the trying on facility. It was the sales process. It was the transaction environment. It was the entirety of what we learned. That's not the case anymore. We never walk in with that little information. So I'm excited about the hero gen. I'm going to call them the hero gen. I actually think that they may in fact be our heroes in one form or another. Why do I call them the hero gen? Well, for a lot of reasons. I'll give you a fun one. You know this mockery of the selfie that's going on? I don't know if you've been to an amusement park lately. They have photographs that say, no selfie sticks. Because people are walking around basically with a golf club under their arm, you know? Like knocking people over with their selfie stick. But instead of saying, wow, that's so selfish, have you ever handed someone a camera and said, you know, Jonathan, take a picture of me? Right? And you know, I don't know how I look, and he's fumbling around, he doesn't know how to push the button right, and then boom, my moment is lost. My moment is lost because I handed the responsibility to someone else. No, I'm gonna freaking take a selfie. I know exactly what angle I look best at, right? And that's that self-awareness, that control that the hero gen has. They have this because there's been video of their whole life. I mean, I have 2 photographs of when I was a kid. These people have every moment coming in, coming out, everything of their entire life documented. They have a recognition, an understanding of their existence like none of us ever had before. You'll notice that I made another point about Rise of the Hero Gen, which is this concept of trophies for all. Anybody have a kid in AYSO soccer? Okay, anybody who doesn't, this is amazing. This is like American Soccer League, totally a joke. It should be called football, I know. Every kid who plays gets a trophy. It doesn't matter how you kick or you get a trophy. Yes, good job participating. Now, hey, we can laugh about this, or you could work at a local Ivy League university here in New York where you get a job review every 4 years. Can you imagine doing your job every day and not getting any feedback for 4 years? I mean, how are you going to be productive and proactive? You want feedback right now. Like, I'm going to get off stage and I'll be like, Jonathan, how did it go? Did I do okay? This concept, we've all wanted the feedback. There just haven't been the tools to give it to us. So this hero gen not only knows thyself in ways we never knew before, they have a self-awareness and a self-expression behavior that is historically unparalleled. I'm really excited about the hero gen, but like all stories, I gotta bring you a little tough news. And so why don't we think about them as individuals in the challenging way so that we can come out the end celebrating. All right, so back to the doodles, bad art. This shopper that we're talking about, the hero gen shopper, I would call an evolved shopper. They do not rest their transaction experience on a single moment. Anybody who's purchased a car in the last 10 years, you do not walk into the car dealer and be like, so tell me about these vehicles. You're like, I want the Model 9B with the special interior kit, and I know what the price is, so don't mess with me. All right, that's an informed shopper, right? Well, how is this information coming to you? Well, you're looking at glowing rectangles, and those glowing rectangles are at home and at work and at play when you're with your kid. You're having conversations. All of that experience is stitching together to be the shopping process. And the retail brick and mortar destination is more like a worship sanctuary. It's where you go to be with, to feel, to join where those are like you, people like you. It's just a node and a shopping experience, if you will. This is an evolved type of shopping. And not only is it an evolved type of shopping, but the consumer is not just waiting for their television episode to come on. Who said a VCR in the last 10 years? I mean, you're laughing at me, but you used to. Okay, now the consumer is binging. They're like, I found what I want, and I can binge the crap out of it whenever I want. Well, what's happening is that, first of all, we've got content being created 24 hours a day. Day and night, there is content being created. Okay, perfect. Not only that, it's being created omni-channel. Mobile, tablet, desktop, monitor, you pick, omni-channel, and on top of this, it is beyond global. You think that if you live in a first world country, you're on the bleeding edge of this? No. Go to Central America. Go to Uruguay, where the youth have Android tablets and they're coding. These children that live in remote villages. And the internet usage in Uruguay has skyrocketed because these children are learning through these channels. The point, though, is that your consumer is not thinking in a 24/7 philosophy. You wake up in the morning and you scroll your social. Are you drawing the line and saying, nope, that's 24 hours old. I am not going to consume that. No, this is an infinite loop of content that is only relevant to the user as they're scrolling through it as it matters to them. I'm going to call this 25/8 because I don't know what's bigger than 24/7. But it's crazy. On top of this, the audience, the hero gen that you're engaging was raised gaming. What I mean by this is, even if you played on a softball league, even if you played World of Warcraft, you pick the gaming environment, there's something that happens while playing games. You know what that is? You lose, like, all the time. I mean, it's not like, you know, you talk to my grandmother and she'd be like, oh, you failed at this one thing. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. The hero gen's like, fail fast. Like, let's get through this. You play a video game, you're failing the whole time. The whole time you're failing. You're playing softball in a competition, the whole time you're missing and tripping and failing, right? This audience that you're speaking to is failure practiced. They have been to failure before, and they're not disrupted by it like you and I used to be. On top of this, they are not confined to just their physical presence. They have been creating avatars, versions of themselves, constantly. You think I want to wear this stupid suit? It's really hot up here. I'm projecting a professorial identity so that you and I can have a conversation. Okay? You know? That's the point of it, right? Well, the hero gen has, since they were 7, they're like, you know what? I'm not the warrior. I'm a mage. You know? I'm going to be the team captain. No, I'm going to be the catcher. They're constantly identifying themselves with these utilities. That means that they're not only self-aware, they're aware of the broadcast of self. You don't believe that this works? Study PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. where you have a soldier coming back from war and they're totally discombobulated. You put in a room with a therapist, they can't get over the personal hurdle. You give them a digital avatar of themselves and an avatar of the therapist, 3 sessions in, post-traumatic stress in a healing process of heartwarming. I mean, Jonathan, I'm getting emotional about it because it's amazing to witness. My father was in the Navy. To watch that transition happen because you gave someone the freedom to not be the organic tissue, but the presentation of self so that they can freely express. I don't know if you've been to Japan lately. People's business card is their avatar. That's their character. That's how you get in contact with them, is their avatar. On top of this, if you've ever played a softball game, a football game, or a video game, the content is so rich. So many characters, outfits, information. It was mind-filling. There's this misnomer called brainwashing. No. The brain has a capacity you and I cannot imagine. We're brain-filling people. We are filling their consciousness with things we want them to process on. Well, your consumer, the hero gen, is used to the most rich and elaborate environments. I don't care if you grew up playing Nintendo or Sega, you pick. Think about the environments you were in, the colors, the shapes, the objectives, the badging that was going on constantly through the process. Your audience grew up with that richness of content. They are expecting that from their retail experience, from the physical experience of walking into. They expect that mind-filling content. On top of this, they don't know nothing. And I mean that for the literal version of that, not the colloquial. Have you ever met anybody 15 years old or younger, and you ask them a question like, who's the 30th president of the United States? And you and I are like, I don't know. They're like, I haven't asked, okay? Like, it doesn't matter. I, Sasha, failed chemistry twice because I could not remember the periodic table of the elements. Youth today are like, I don't need to remember the periodic table of the elements. Why would you even waste the homework time studying that? Because they have the power to ask, the power to wonder, the infinite power to wonder. They can query anything that they don't know. You no longer have to turn to your grandfather and say, Grandpa, why is the world this way? You ever watch a child turn to a grandfather now? They're like, Gramps, that's ridiculous. Okay? What's also special about this audience that has this permanent ability to wonder is they're not wondering alone. They have something I call an identity index. Try this on. The hero gen is in contact with everybody they went to kindergarten with, everybody that they worked with at their last job, everybody that they were in class with at university, graduate school, and the international program. My coworker Anna and I, Anna was in a special summer program in college. She hasn't seen these people in a really long time. She's like, I'm in New York, you want to get together? They've been following each other in social, boom. She has a business meeting with colleagues that she hasn't seen in 15 years. Okay, what's amazing about your audience, the hero gen, is they have an identity index. Any question they want to ask, they don't have to stand there befuddled. They can either ask the universe through search, or they can ask the people in their identity index that matter most to them. That's why they're posing these questions in social, tweeting about it, building Google groups to have this conversation. Your consumer has an identity index, there we go, has an identity index that becomes their safety gate. They have friends and will ask. There's never a decision made alone. So, again, back to the story arc. We've gone through why this may be, in fact, the greatest age of social change. We understand that there's an audience that is not defined by the year they were born. It's a psychology, hence me calling them the hero gen. But there are some painful truths about being an evolved consumer, content having 25/8 lifespan. They were raised with gaming, which requires mind-filling engagement. They only wonder, they do not know nothing. And they have an identity index that they can query anytime there's something that they need guidance on. So how do you win? I know you guys have obligations and careers and coworkers. I get it. I know that you're here because you're trying to advance. So I want to answer some quick questions about how to get there. And you'll hear one all the time today. I promise. You're going to hear about buy moments. The moment where the consumer has some inconvenience that they cannot traverse and they're ready to buy. They're in that moment ready to buy, whether that's through Pinterest or Twitter, where there will be buy buttons tomorrow, probably already now. where the consumer says, this is what it is that I'm looking for, and they can transact with Apple Pay or Google Pay, whatever the payment platform is on the back end. All right, what happens if you're not there in the buy moments? Okay, you get it? I don't need to harp on it. But buy moments are not the entirety of the engagement, because what about everything else other than the buy moments? I want you to focus on those just as much. Those would a next level up on our story arc, the learn moments. You ever heard this concept? Teach, don't sell? Everyone hates to be sold. Anybody like to be sold to? Anybody like it? Okay, great. Everybody is interested in learning and advancing. And that's why the internet has enabled this behavior of permanent learning. So for your Hero Gen target demo, you have two options. Be where learning happens and or why learning happens. Let me give you a great retail example. If you walked into Sephora 5 years ago, you would see sections, like departments, and people bound to those departments, bound to the knowledge they had about that product line because their family used it. The consumer in Sephora the consumer walks around Sephora with their mobile device in hand, permanently querying, asking other people how they use these makeup techniques, what the past and the present of this brand might be. Sephora decided that this was not a pain point. That's the consumer trying to learn, trying to better serve themselves instead of trying to block it with no Wi-Fi or having a sales clerk interrupt them in the midst of that experience. It's like, no. You want to learn, we are going to provide you the environment where you can ask the questions. On top of this, though, there's another version. We're not just being the environment where learning happens, and this can be online too, by the way. Take a look at Johnson & Johnson, one of the largest pharmaceutical medical device companies in the world. They have a website called babycenter.com. Anybody who's reared a child knows it's everything you need to know, blogs, discussions about conception all the way to your child being 9 years old, weekly. Does it say, buy Johnson & Johnson products across the headline? No. It's a place where people go to learn, and Johnson & Johnson gets the passive equity from that affiliation. But I want to show you an example of why learning happens, and this is one of my favorite. Walk into a Lowe's or a Home Depot, you will see a father and a daughter taking a free class on how to build a birdhouse. That learning would not have happened unless that retailer recognized the best way to engage is to educate. So instead of selling birdhouses, signs for discount get them while they're hot birdhouses, sale on birdhouses. This is a place where you and your family can work on creative things together, and we're going to show you how. The consumer's never insulted. They're taking pictures of it, they're sharing it with their family and friends with pride, and every single time that little girl looks at that birdhouse, she's going to remember that she learned with her father while building it. All right, what else do we know? We know that if the Hero Gen is ready to buy, we need to be there. If the Hero Gen is ready to learn, we better be there ready to teach. But what about when they're expressing themselves? Because this is, in fact, the age of expression. We all are projecting. We're like our own media moguls, aren't we? Just constantly broadcasting so that people can understand us. Well, it's your job to enable that expression, to help us express ourselves. If you've ever been a member of any group, any retailer online, an airline, they are badging you constantly. They're tapping you on the shoulder, badging you. And that makes you feel respected and understood and considered. Well, the Hero Gen collects these badges. These badges are infrastructure to their individual identity. One of our clients is one of the largest online universities in the world. We surveyed students around the planet. They have 400,000 people enrolled. Every single student across race, culture, and religion wanted the same thing. You know what they wanted from this online university? Who wants to guess what they wanted? More than a degree. What type of degree? The one that they could put on the wall. That people could walk in their office and be like, oh, you are a learned soul, yes. Now, it sounds silly to you, but you could get a master's degree online and get no badge. Are you going to work as hard? Are you going to care as much? Are you going to tell people about it? No. You need that thank you, credential, compliment, certification, acknowledgement of that being, and you have the amazing opportunity because your buyers synonymize, they associate themselves with you. your brands, your experience. Talk to a Target shopper, they're like, how dare you not call it Target? You know? I talked to some Kmart shop, KM Art. You know, like there's this expressive psychology that comes with being hero gen. And on top of this, the hero gen doesn't walk into a store, identify a piece of clothing, transact on it, and walk out. They're taking photographs, they're in the changing room taking selfies, okay? In that experience, they are self-expressing. Do you want to leave their self-expression to chance? Or do you want to help them self-express? Do you want to create environments that warrant the photographs? You ever seen those crazy little wooden things with a hole cut in it and you put your head in, and it takes a picture, you're like in a dress or whatever the case might be? That, but on a social level, where these consumers are experiencing your retail environment because you have created an environment worth engaging, where they are absolutely sharing who they are in the social context by expressing themselves with your brands. But, of course, there's a higher rung on top of all of this, and that is to impact the way that hero gen live. They are alive, they are growing, but you notice they have this amazing, gonna go do that, going to that place, gonna do that thing. They're not sitting by passive. In fact, they live to share their life. They're sharing their life in ways that you and I never even considered before. Now, sometimes they're sharing lives and people are judging them. Sometimes people are celebrating them, but let's just be really clear, the content is engaging. Because the way that people live is, in fact, what's most interesting to you and I. That's what really tingles us, is to understand how other people are living or to be the participant in it. So when you think about this hero gen, they do not like celebrities. They like celebrated lives. Celebrated lives. In fact, they don't even know what a celebrity is, because are the celebrities the starlets of Hollywood anymore? No. They're random people, no-namers, right? I was in the hotel, the Dream Hotel, and the Fat Jewish was staying there. You guys know who the Fat Jewish is? It's one of the largest Instagram yeah. It's like, he is super random. His name, Fat Jewish, like why is that, starlet? The point is that this is just an individual whose life has become public, and he's socializing on such an extreme scale that he has 5 million followers at his fingertips. This concept of enabling the life of the individual also might manifest in this one-for-one behavior you're seeing a lot of. Listen, Warby Parker and Tom's, they did not invent this. Let's just recognize that they did not invent one-for-one. They did an analysis and they figured out that this is how they could get people to really care. And in that one-for-one behavior, whether you're wearing the glasses or walking around in the shoes, you as hero gen are thinking about other people. You're actually living a little differently. Every time you take a step, you're thinking to yourself, wow, there's people elsewhere who've been greatly benefited by my actions and behaviors. This is a powerful opportunity that you have. You know that the consuming audience is not only socially conscious, they have this concept called glocal. Yes, global. Yes, make my outfit in Indonesia, but treat the local people with respect, right? Okay, this is a lifestyle thing. This is a way of living and thinking and engaging with the world. This is not a marketing technique. So if you want to engage the hero gen at the buy moments, absolutely. Be there when they buy. No arguments. You want to be better than just the buy moments? Be there while they learn. Be why they learn. You want to beat just the learn moments? Be how they express. Help them express themselves. You want to win? Change the way they live. And I want to give you one little farewell thought as you process this. We're living in a fascinating time. There are 10 civil wars going on in the Middle East. We have another Clinton running for president, another Bush. Okay, we've got Chris Christie, which is like a social media maven. He's making YouTube videos in a day, more YouTube videos in a day than you're making in the entire history of your executive status at your company, okay? I mean, he is just prolific. And then we've got Trump. Okay, I'm serious. Who's gonna lead? If you were the hero gen asking that question, who's gonna lead? I have a philosophy. I think leaders lead leaders. Great leaders lead leaders. This hero gen needs to be led. They need to be guided by people like you. And I want that to be an opportunity rather than a pain point. And I want to concretize that opportunity with an example of a conference I went to recently. This will blow your minds. Conference costs, try this on, $10,000 to sit in the audience for one day. That's a lot of cash, okay? Well, I cannot afford $10,000, but I was asked to be a speaker. So I did my shtick, and then after my speech, I walked into all the conference rooms to watch who was meeting. There was a room this size. Half of the room, try this on, nations that border oceans. Yeah, it's a long list of places, right? Okay, great, perfect. Over here, global shipping companies. Do you know what nations that border oceans and global shipping companies were talking about at $10,000 conference? Global warming. They're like, hey, the polar ice caps are melting. No longer do we have to cut a hole in the earth to take our goods and services all the way around the planet to get to this destination. We can go 1/3 the distance with far less insurance risk, less disruption to living populaces. They see global warming as a grand opportunity. I do not, but but I will use it as an analogy. So that when you hear global warming, yes, death, doom, and destruction, but when you hear global warming, recognize that you look at history and the nations, the economies that led history were built on global trade routes. I say in Constantinople, and it was right in the middle of the trade routes, okay? Well, the trade routes are different now. The internet has forever changed the way that trade is administered, forever changed the way that we engage. So there's new paths to profit. There's new opportunity to lead, new paths to power. But you have to recognize that the earth is not the same that it was. You can either beloved the way that it was, or you can participate in the way that it is. And what's so special about this era is that the consumer is no longer saying, are you an S Corp? Are you an Inc? Are you a .edu or a .org? No. You know that Google will tell you this. Nobody types in web addresses anymore. Nobody's like, hypertext transfer protocol : / World Wide Web . They're just going right into the toolbar and typing in your retail name, and Google's helping them find their destination, right? They're no longer quantifying their choices based on your business plan. They're quantifying their choices based on who you are and what you're doing. Look at my little crazy octopus here, okay? You do not know if this is a .com, a .org, a .net, but I will tell you this. It's got a labor force. They provide some goods and services. They have a target audience, customer, consumer. They've got a history and a future, a financial model, a purpose and a passion, leaders and laws, and a community. That's who the hero gen is attaching themselves to. They did not ask who the founder was or why you're headquartered in New York versus Los Angeles. That's not their concern. There's a group of people who work with you. That group of people believes in a very specific thing. That specific thing informs the way that you sell and relate and engage. I want to give you some tried and true action items that religion and history have proven work perfectly. I've got one more minute to do it. And I want to tell you that you are a chief executive leading a group of people, a group of leaders. You are the leader of leaders. And I promise you that no leader in history has ever gotten their people to follow, well, except for by brute force and war, without a plan. A plan, a way in which we are going to do this. Don't go back home and be like, so I was at this Google conference and like, we got to get on this mobile thing. It's not fair. It's not fair to your coworkers. Not fair to your board. You have to build a plan. I'm going to tell you something. I watch the news and I'm sickened by it. Because they know that death, doom, and destruction gets you to pay attention. That's why there's always, you drive by a car accident and you try to look away, but you can't. Well, guess what? The media knows this. And that's why all the ads are adjacent to the bad news. I believe in the future. I'm excited to be alive right now. I'll call this whatever you want. I'm just going to call it futurology. Now, if you want to join me, your question's going to be like, all right, Strauss, how are we going to get to futurology land? And you're right. You deserve to know. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to take All the information, I'm going to take big data, religion, bioscience, astronomy, science fiction, gaming, social data. I'm going to take that information. I'm going to set some strategic priorities. My strategic priorities in life, education, economy, and entertainment. We better work twice, play the third time, right? Who am I going to benefit? Well, I'm targeting humans or animals or the planet or the universe. And like every religion has taught all of us for thousands of years, you want an audience to participate, to engage, to believe in you, give them something to do tonight, give them something to do this weekend, give them something to do as a community quarterly. Well, I don't care what religion you were raised with, you know that that's the behavior. In this process of getting your audience, your coworkers, your benefactors, customers, your strategic partners, to join you in this transition to futurology land, you got to show them the path that you're going to follow. Because in the end, what succeeds will boil down to two inevitable truths. People will no longer care specifically about the organizations that organize, because those organizations are big, gelatinous, international, global, of multi-currency. They're going to care about the humans that have circled up around a reason to believe why we do this. We're democratizing design. Maybe that's the intention of why we sell the way that we sell. We're trying to enable mothers to be the best mothers they can be. Fine, let that be the reason to believe that circles up this audience. But let's just be really clear. The reason to believe is not enough. The plan is not enough. It's the leaders that lead that define. Think about an organization you admire. Jonathan didn't quote Amazon earlier today. He quoted Jeff Bezos. The point is that the leaders that lead are that which we bond with most. The Hero Gen is looking for these examples. So in closing, if you're going to make this transition, if you're going to serve the engaged audience, remember, they're not generationally defined by the years they were born. They're defined by the lifestyle that they live. And if they've got a mobile device, if they're connected to the internet, if they're permanently learning, if they've got digital identities, they're your customer. And there's one tried and true recipe for engaging humans. A reason to believe, a plan to get there, and a leader to follow. So thank you so much for spending this time with me.